All right, as you can see, I put over 1,000 miles on this e-bike. Now, this is the Aventon Sinch.2, and although I don't really have a script or anything, I just have some thoughts on sharing my long-term perspective of having an e-bike in general. Even though Aventon did send this for review, and this is a long-term review, I just love this type of technology. I love e-bikes. I actually was reading in this book called Regeneration this concept of 15-minute cities, which I do want to make an entire video on at another time. But really, how transportation is a huge problem for a lot of people, and a lot of people in the town I live in love the bike ride. They love to ride their bikes, and parking is an issue too. The more populated a small town, a small city like mine gets, the harder it is to really be mobile. I mean, we're moving more and more, especially with cities, to a mobile first kind of approach, and e-bikes really affect that mobility. They really affect your access to things. I mean, there's so many times I've decided to ride my e-bike instead of driving and felt so much better because I still got to my destination really quick without sweating, without being exhausted, and was able to have a good day because I always had bike parking. Whether it was a coffee shop, a concert, all kinds of different things I did this year using an e-bike. So that's why I think they're just vital. I mean, yes, we can get into the eco-friendliness of it, all that kind of stuff, but I would have to really look into what's the recyclability of batteries this big. It's a big battery, and of parts like this before I can make a judgment call on how eco-friendly it is, just because it's not outputting carbon emissions. You know what I mean? So in getting into this long-term review, the first thing I want to talk about, and don't mind my sweater I just got from the store, but I want to talk about comfortability. So with the seating that is built in with the bike, obviously this is the one it came with, it's not really that soft. It doesn't have the most padding ever, but I haven't felt discomfort from it. And that goes along with just how it's shaped and the height adjustments, including with the height adjustment of the handlebars. There's not one time my back is hurt or I felt uncomfortable or just didn't like riding this for a long period of time. And by long period, I mean maybe 10 miles, which is maybe not that long to a lot of people. The most I've rode this bike in one shot, I believe, was 15 in one shot to go to the mountains to take some photos. And it was incredible. I had so much enjoyment with it. And that even includes the shocks. The shocks on this bike are really, it's kind of hard to demonstrate it holding a camera. But as long as you unlock it here and really make sure that you have it disabled, the lock disabled, the shocks really add to the value and to the ease of riding this on bumps, speed bumps, on trails, all kinds of different things. Different paths I rode this bike on and really had a blast. So if we get into some of the specs of the speed and how I would ride this bike, well, one of the biggest things to think about is, whoops, I'm hitting the turn signal, is looking at the different modes that I have rode. And I started off doing the eco the most, and the reason being is because I wasn't used to having this strong of a motor on a pedal assist to compare to riding a Fuji bike that was a street bike. And my Fuji bike was really a fun bike to ride. I rode that thing all over town all the past 2 years I've been in the city, and I noticed it right away how just having it on the eco setting, how powerful it was and how much of a difference an e-bike makes. Even my friends and neighbors that have seen my e-bike and they go, "Hey, can I take that thing for a little ride?" And I would say sure. They would right away go to like turbo, and I'm like, I'm telling you, you're gonna go way too fast. You're not used to it. Like, just start off at eco and they can feel the difference. And as far as how fast you can go and how strong the bike is. So I don't do eco anymore though. With all that being said, I actually keep it at sport or turbo, and as far as the gear setting goes, I'll keep it at about a 7 or an 8 the whole time. And the reason being is I've rode this bike to so many different spots that I just want to go there for the convenience. I don't really care to get a workout with my e-bike. It's good enough I'm pedaling as it is, and I'm outside and I'm not driving. So I'm like, hey, I'm riding an e-bike for the reward of riding an e-bike. All right. So that's when it comes to the speed settings and this and that. When it comes to the lighting, you're not going to be able to see it from this video, but basically you'll hold the plus button up and it would access the lighting. So what I'm going to do now, as I'm trying to show you in the daylight, just how bright it may be, is also include B-roll as of the date of making this video of how bright these lights get. But so far, here's the lighting in the day. I'll show some B-roll right now of what it's like at night and maybe do a separate edit right now. All right, so this is how bright the lights are at night. I mean, you're gonna be seeing. If you're worried about how good the lighting is and how bright that headlight is, look how much you can see. I mean, unfortunately, it's like 10 o'clock at night, so I'm trying not to talk too loud, but this is just in front of my house anyway. Now, let me hit one of the turn signals. I mean, look at that. It's like it may as well be a car. That's just so crazy. One more thing about the gears, actually, I had to add this after making the video, is they're very seamless in their shifting. I mean, I've rode this bike one-handable plenty of times with just the right hand. If maybe I was just messing around on my phone. I know that's not safe to do. I'm just being honest on my experience. This is the throttle. It goes really quick. You can go 0 to 20 miles an hour just using the throttle. And the brakes are strong enough to where if you just brake with one hand, it's efficient enough and strong enough to brake from 20 to 0 in a few seconds just with one hand. But to me, the shifting of the gears with the paddles here, shifting up, shifting down, it's been seamless the whole time. As long as you grease the chain, make sure you don't neglect that whenever you're riding an e-bike, because you are putting more wear and tear than normal. And I'm just showing you how dirty my bike is because of how much I've ridden it. But yeah, this has been really seamless when it comes to the gears, so I didn't want to forget that. It started getting dark and I'm gonna do a hill test. And you can see that's a pretty steep hill for any bike. And of course, I'm gonna give myself some room to actually be able to take it on. So I have the gear set at 8 and then the motor set to tour. So let's go ahead and pedal, and I won't use the throttle or anything. And this is one-handed and all, so let's see how easy it makes it up to here. That was actually pretty easy for it being one-handed, and see it coming from like a cold start. Another thing I want to mention after riding this bike for 1,000 miles is the brakes. I haven't had to change them once, and I had an issue. I went to the bike shop the other day and I had an issue with the cable coming loose of these brakes. But overall, the brake pads themselves, if I can show you, it's kind of a hard angle to show you. The brake pads themselves are still pretty good. They're about medium thickness, and yeah, that's not doing too well on me showing you the brakes. I can't fit this camera in, but it's about medium thickness on the brake pads, and that even goes for the back, which is a little bit easier to see. Let me see if I can get that to focus. Even with the brake pads on the back, they've done really well and have lasted for a really long time. I just had the issue with the front. The cable right here was just coming loose. Now, that has nothing to do with the quality of the bike. That's just maintenance, you know? That's just what's gonna happen when you're riding an e-bike over 1,000 miles. You know, you're just gonna have basic maintenance issues or things come up. And luckily I didn't have to replace the brakes, because the brakes run about $25 a piece per, not per piece, but per set, which is not that bad given how far I've rode this e-bike and still haven't had to replace them. Another thing about, now that I'm just like down here looking at the tires and whatnot, is let's talk about the tires and any issues I've had with those. I haven't had any issues with the tires except for getting flats, because of nothing to do with the manufacturing of this bike. I had no issues for the longest time, but the rear tire has received 2 flats for some reason. Given it's weird, I haven't gotten a flat tire in the front running over stuff. but I ran over Staples of all things. Somebody on the bike path, I don't know if they did this on purpose to be messed up, but I was just riding my bike, and all of a sudden I just started hearing my rear bike tire go flat while I was going to the coffee shop. I think this was on an August morning, and I basically had to lift the bike and carry it. I'll show a photo, all the way to the bike shop because I didn't have a car. I didn't want to spend money to take an Uber, and it was like 1.5 miles of this 70+ pound bike. I had to kind of carry the back because I realized that if you get a flat tire on this bike or any e-bike, there's so much weight to it that even if you take the battery out, you can't just drag the tire. You're gonna mess up the rim, and you're actually gonna make the tire come off the rim and cause more damage. So you have no choice but to just lift it. It's not as light or as thin with these fat tires as a normal bike, just FYI. So if you were to get a flat tire with an e-bike that has fat tires like this, just be prepared that, yeah, you can't just drag it. That's not how these wheels work. So I had to replace the tube twice. The bike shop that did it for me charged me to grease the chain and to check the brakes and to just basically make sure everything's in good working order. Charged me $50 to replace the tube and check everything and grease the chain and do all basic maintenance for $50, so I didn't have to do it myself. I think tubes run about $20 on average on the Aventon site. Not that expensive, you can probably find it cheaper, and the PSI has to be 35 on both tires. It even says that right there, inflate to 35 PSI. So it's a really comfy ride. I love this thing so much. And then battery life on this thing, best way I can put this big chunk of a battery in terms of how it did for me. Actually, I may as well show you where the charging port is. That's how easy it is to charge it when you get home. You just plug in the charger it comes with. But with battery life, after riding it 1,000 miles, mostly during the day, not so much at night, I typically ride the bike and have rode the bike 5 miles to the coffee shops I go to the grocery store, to gym, boxing classes, yoga classes, all kinds of different things in my town. And that's typically what it takes to go from my house to the spots that I frequently go to, more into the city. And so 5 trips a day. It takes me about 3 days before I need to charge this bike, where it's down to 10%, 15%, riding it on not the turbo setting, but riding it on the sport setting at a gear of 8 or 7, you know, more than half the time. So it's either going to be the sport setting or the touring setting on those 2 gears, and that's how long the battery life lasts. So to me, I feel like it's pretty dang good for it to last that long, not even being on the eco setting. So just do the math, you know. So you can probably get about 20 miles on average with that speed setting before you fully have to charge this from 100% full to dead without the lights being on. And I always go 20 miles an hour. I know that's probably really fast for a lot of people for some reason. The people I know who have e-bikes in this town, every time they see my e-bike, they're like, that's such a cool bike, you know, where'd you get it? And I try to be humble. I don't like saying I got it for free, but I'm like, oh, it was gifted to me, and I just keep it at that. I don't really like to boast about my YouTube channel. I like it to feel organic. I don't know, there's something about it that's weird. If I just rat away, I'm like, well, I have a YouTube channel, I got it for free. But no, some people I have told that to, and they get very curious and become a subscriber, so that's cool too. But no, when people see it, I ask them, how fast do you go on your e-bike? And it's funny, they go, I go about like 10 miles an hour, 15. I'm like, really? You don't push it to the limit? I push it to the limit all the time, you know? And I think it's because they're trying to keep it eco-friendly, or maybe I've had some people with their e-bikes say, hey, I like to actually feel a workout, or I like to actually enjoy my ride. For me though, I got this e-bike and was curious about reviewing an e-bike, simply put, because I wanted to drive a lot less. That's exactly why I got it. So I got it for commuting purposes. I got it from getting to point A to point B for work or whatever I want to do fast still, as fast as I can, being more eco-friendly than driving, and it being more convenient than driving. So that's just some of my thoughts on having an e-bike and riding it for over 1,000 miles over, oh geez, it's been I got this bike beginning of June, so quite a few months now. And I love it. Barely had to do any maintenance on it. If it wasn't for those flat tires, I would have had to do zero maintenance besides greasing the chain and just adjusting the cables on the brakes. But no, this was a fun little video just to give everyone an update on how this bike has been doing for me. And so if you have any questions, just please let me know in the comments below. I have some other e-bikes I would like to review and do a comparison with this bike on, but to me, if I was spending, I think right now they have a sale going on with Aventon 2, but if I'm spending over $1,200, $1,500 on an e-bike and I really bought this myself and Aventon didn't give it to me for review, I gotta tell you, I think it's so worth the money, especially if you're like, yeah, I don't need anything but an e-bike. I don't need a car or nothing, and you have that money, get yourself an e-bike, period. But especially this one, I love this thing. So that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for listening to me ramble on. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. And thank you so much for to Aventon for providing this for review.